Hey, everybody. Wow, we have 9 people actually here. That's nice. Waiting already there. So, yeah, welcome to another Street Epistemology call-in show on Saturdays in between the Discord practice sessions. I'm Reid from Cordial Curiosity, and I have Dali here with me as a co-host. What's up, Dali?
Oh, I'm sun. Sun is up.
Got the sun is up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sun is up. I just came back from a walk in the sun, so the sun is very much up.
Great. All right, cool. Yeah, welcome, everybody. So, yeah, today is very fortuitous. Roe versus Wade was overturned. Was it yesterday? 2 days ago? In the United States here, that's the law, the federal law about abortion. And now it goes back to the states. And so that's probably a topic potentially someone might want to call in with today. Should abortion be legal federally, or what is the ideal policy for abortion anywhere, really? So that's one topic you might get people calling in today about potentially, or whatever you want to talk about. We're also open to anything. And besides that, what else are we going to be doing today?
Call in people. Oh, there might be a few things that we can review in the background if necessary. If that's relevant.
Yeah. And let me pin this comment here so it's in the chat. Great. Alrighty, so yeah, let me just add this banner. Feel free to call in anybody to talk about anything. We will definitely be checking to make sure it's a real person. Have any mishaps as like last time. We're doing it live. There we go. Oh, hey, Parisia. Oh, shit. There you go.
Yep.
Is Bogosian's tour finished? It is. Yeah, we finished over a month ago now, and now we're editing all the videos. Travis Brown is doing the editing as well as I am. I was actually editing the behind the scenes for the Northern Arizona tour stop the past few days. It takes a long time because we were just recording the entire time. Everything we were doing, so I have to watch all of this behind the scenes footage and pick out the best stuff. But yeah, it's good stuff. And in the meantime, we're just posting the Spectrum videos in the event highlight videos.
Is Spectrum the 7 lines on the ground?
Okay. Yeah, that's the Spectrum videos. Yep. And yeah, I've also subscribed to Parahesia's Substack as well. I think I read his latest post. It was interesting. And yeah,
I'm not familiar. Is this something I should be?
It's checking? Just one of the many Substacks out there. You can it's email newsletter type of thing.
Okay. I'm not set up for those.
Oh yeah. Yeah, lots. I'm subscribed to a bunch. I wonder if I should also do a Substack at some point and post my videos to it. I think Parahesia recommended I do that. I don't know if I should. Seems like a lot of work, but might be able to add perks for people and get some funding that way.
Okay.
Oh, I should. Okay. Well, what are feel free to come on and persuade me with more reasons. Yeah. So should we talk about? I guess we can talk about this new initiative that we're doing with SEI.
Okay.
We've recently created a committee called the Creator Committee at SEI, Street Epistemology International, the nonprofit for Street Epistemology. Mark Solomon is heading that from Being Reasonable. And we're planning to do like regular Zoom meetings for people who create SE content, like ourselves, Dali and I, and other people like Mark. And we'll be just there to support anybody who is planning to create content. And I'll just read this and it explains it all. Part of SEI's mission is to provide people around the world with the resources needed to develop, practice, and promote street epistemology. With this in mind, SEI has established a committee to, among other things, host a regularly scheduled Zoom meeting with both new and seasoned SE content creators to support their efforts to create and publish content across various social media platforms for those who want to. So the main things we'll be doing is like meeting others who have thought about creating their own SE content, learning the skills to better master the social media platforms of your choice. I could use some help with that. Address obstacles that typically dissuade individuals from producing SE content, and addressing common equipment needs that arise with producing your own SE content. That would have been a great resource when I was starting out. Yeah, so if you're interested in that, feel free to email Mark Sullivan, creator-committee@streetepistemologyinternational.org. Then we will send you a Zoom link for the meeting that's going to be on Thursday, June 30th at 9 p.m. Eastern. I will be there, and I look forward to anybody else who's interested to come. All right, great.
Cool. I will definitely be there.
Sweet.
Now that I know about it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, so yes.
Hello, Jim.
Yeah, hey, Jim. If anybody else wants to come in and chat about Acclaim, we are always open.
Yep. This is mostly a call-in show, but we'll talk about other things in the middle times.
Yep. What do you want to talk about, Dali?
This week I learned a new thing. Yesterday I just spent a lot of time with my friend Hirsch, whom you might have seen a month or so ago, presenting some statistics knowledge, and he taught me a summary of a class he had in his PhD studies on epistemology. And the thing that I learned that was new is to widen my definition of epistemology past what I have right now to include how academics see it, or at least saw it at the time that Hirsch took his class. Apparently, in academic epistemology, any way someone comes to truth, no matter how they define or redefine reality and truth, is an epistemology, even if it's just, I pick this and I don't. Okay, so some of the epistemologies, for example, assert outright that there is no common reality, that there is no non-subjective truth. So it seems like street epistemology in general has a very strong bias toward there being an objective reality. We have our tic-tac tests, we have that kind of thing. And if somebody thinks objective truth exists, we're just like, okay, here we go. Or objective reality, we're all along it. And if they don't, we end up asking a lot of questions. So I think that clearly shows that we think that as a community, on average, that objective reality is the thing. So, part of the way through his teaching me, I was telling him, if that's an epistemology, bald is a hair color. But anyway, so it seems like there were 3 epistemologies that he covered called positivism, post-positivism, and hermeneutics that I'm compelled by a bit. And the other ones, this is a non-exhaustive list. This is what his professor taught him. The other 4 were critical theory, constructivism, standpoint, and deconstruction. And it turns out none of those are compelling at all to me. I find them not even to be epistemologies to my mindset. But as long as the operational definition of an epistemology is just whatever method you use to get to a truth, no matter how you define truth or reality, then yeah, I guess it is. So if anybody wants to come and yak about that, that's obviously open.
Gotcha. So critical theory and structuralism, and what else? What was the other one?
Critical theory, constructivism, which is also known as relativism, interpretivism, and naturalistic inquiry. And it values Okay. In this case, reality is defined as being determined by time and place via dialogues. So reality isn't tested against something. Apparently we're talking about the models inside people's heads being the most base reality. Maybe I'm misunderstanding that. And the reality exists in each observer or participant, and truth is defined as the summation of all the individual's point of view. So
Okay.
that one apparently rejects external independent reality.
Yeah, which is why one in the this statement in the survey is a good one to start with.
Yeah, the survey definitely shows that we have a strong preference.
Yeah, and this one.
That the SE community seems to share a strong preference toward objective reality.
Mm-hmm. And this would be a more constructivism, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on how you answer that.
Mm-hmm.
And this one.
Yeah, people create words and define their meaning.
That could apply.
Well,
in anything.
Specifically, that would point to the hermeneutics epistemology.
What is that about?
Okay, so these first three, the positivism basically says we can only know that which we quantify. And then post-positivism, by the way, rant, I really, really dislike terms that are defined only in the negative. If all I'm doing is telling you what I'm not and not telling you what I am, it's too vague. It's a pet peeve. I really dislike those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So calling it post-positivism, post-empiricism, those kinds of things, I just like, okay, it's after this, but what is it? Mm-hmm. I could put anything after this. Suddenly it's a brush. What is it after? But anyway, that one takes the idea of operational definitions and subjective observers being tested against each other for consistency. So if you can get several independent observers to categorize a thing, and they are similar and consistent, then you step up to like a quantitative measurement. So that's a lot how social sciences are done, things like that. And then hermeneutics is basically staying within the notion of language. What does language mean is something that we can study by looking at context and interrelationships of that language and see if we can narrow down and limit what meanings are in the way they're used. And so for that, it allows us to study language and things that are embedded in language. Gotcha. All three of those I like. I like those. Those work.
Cool. Anything else about the epistemologies?
It's just let's see. Just that I had to redefine my term of what epistemology is to include some things which I think are very poor epistemologies, and that's my bias coming through. And that I shouldn't use the term bias. I should use preference, because bias literally means error in sampling. So says my pedant friend, the statistician.
That's the more technical definition of bias.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but this is carefully using that word. It's reserved jargon. There's a lot of that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all.
Cool. All right, we got some questions in the chat from Jim B. Do you feel the need to take a different approach when engaging with those holding traditional religious beliefs when compared to those who are spiritual? Yes, probably. Traditional religious beliefs are usually based on, let me try to find this thing. The fundamentalist decision-making principle, those who know the truth to decide who is right, and that's more based on like scripture or just God. God knows the truth. He revealed it in scripture, so he's right. That's traditional religious beliefs usually. But spiritual stuff is usually this one. All sincere persons' belief have equal claims to respect.
Yes.
the simple egalitarian decision-making principle, and it's like very relativistic. So those things are very different in terms of SE, for sure.
Yeah. Most of traditional religion, certainly not all, tends to be based in a authority is the source of truth. Like Vanya, he was very much talking about what is his source of truth. He was going back to the Bible. I'm not sure if it was King James, but in any case, he was going back to Scripture as his source of truth. And every time he referred to somebody else's source of truth, it was always an authority. And in some cases, he was throwing out things that other people might use as a source of information because it was obviously an invalid authority. And he wasn't, in my opinion, he wasn't seeing any source of truth other than authorities. Whereas with the spiritual question, authorities are much more fluid. You could let go of a particular guru and not let go of most of the beliefs. Just the one that annoyed you about that particular person. You jump from guru to guru every year. Not have to necessarily change all that much.
True. Like there's the spiritual kind of like the external versus internal. Some gurus are external, but maybe some spiritual people really rely on internal ways of justifying their beliefs. If they just believe it, then it's true.
Yes. Yeah. I've heard most. I have a vague woo and crystals category, and hopefully I'm not using really nasty words about this, but I in that category of people, I find most of them reifying or validating their beliefs based on an internal feeling. And if you get all the way down to their epistemology, it bounces off an internal feeling, something that they feel in their heart. And they'll usually use the word heart, but whatever. The word heart is not. Yeah, it's the gut test.
Yeah. You also hear the word resonate.
That becomes the baseline, the bedrock. The farthest one you can go down to is a gut test.
Right.
Yeah. So as far as a different approach, well, hopefully I'm really just going to ask them what their authorities and epistemologies are rather than assuming them. But I'm not going to be wrong very often if somebody says something Bible, something Quran, to say, is that the way you check if it's real? If it says so in your scripture, is it true? Versus if you learn it elsewhere, can it be as true as something that's said in your scripture? Things like that.
Right. Hello, Mendo. Not too far away. We're both here in Los Angeles, Dali and I.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Another comment from Barry Husho. Do you guys ever do SC on trans women or women? A lot of people are talking about Matt Walsh's recent documentary, What is a Woman? This seems like a tricky question for many. Yeah, I've done a few things, and I think Mark Solomon has a great series with Deanna. They talk about, I think they started out talking about gender assigned at birth does not dictate who we are.
Yep.
And that got all into about all of that stuff. And I think we did a review show on that.
That show, besides Diana, who's very memorable, that show reminds me, Mark shows a huge learning about terms between show 1 and show 2. During show 1, Mark and Deanna got a little confused with each other about what objective meant, and then they came back and they worked it out, boom, between sessions, and that just a good example of learning to meet up on terms.
Yeah, that was nice to see people getting, more not divided, but getting together on words. It's nice. I'm trying to read the chat here. It's so far away on my small teleprompter screen here.
Oh no.
Spirituality from my experience in Reiki was very based on feelings, being measured what's true. Yeah. DA says religious claims are known experientially in the mystical dimension. Authority is the manner by which you transmit beliefs that allow instrumentally for the traveling on the way. Wow.
Okay. DA, do you have an example that could illuminate this? An example of a truth that was taken through this dimension and how you attached it and then how it influenced your life? Hopefully that's the useful question.
Oh, speaking of, we have Mark.
Hey guys.
Hello, Mark. Welcome.
Good to see both of you. How you guys doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Yeah, we already kind of talked about your new venture with the creator chair, but want to talk about it some more?
Yeah.
Thursday's meeting.
Yes, that's we have some really exciting things coming, and so we're gonna have the first meeting Thursday, June 30th, 9 p.m. Eastern time. And what we're doing is, and I don't know if who's out there has ever thought about, producing their own content or what it'd be like to be a content creator for SE. And I might have been in your shoes, because when I first started out, I probably, like you, came across Reid and Anthony's videos, and I saw Dali's stuff as well. And I just remember thinking to myself, gosh, I mean, I could try to do that, and I might do it well. I could maybe fall flat on my face. I don't know, but I think it'd be worth a try, and I don't really have anything to lose. And so I was there. I was like you, and I think you should give it a shot, because I don't know what you have to lose, and you have everything to gain, because we really, really want more people out there to produce content, to have these SE conversations, because it's a way back from the brink, and it's a way we can have these wonderful conversations, important conversations with each other, and not devolve into the problems that we have with conversations we see all the time around us. So if you've thought about becoming an SE content creator, part of SEI's mission actually is to provide people from around the world with the resources needed to develop, practice, and promote SE. With this in mind, SEI has established a committee where I will host regularly scheduled Zoom meetings with both new and seasoned SE content creators to support their efforts to create and publish content across various social media platforms for those who want to meet others who have thought about creating their own SE content, learn the skills to better master the social media platforms of your choice, address obstacles that typically dissuade individuals from producing SE content, and address common equipment needs that often arise with producing your own SE stuff. So if you want, if you're interested in anything I've said, you can contact me directly. I'm the new creator committee chair lead, and this you can contact me at creator, and I can write this in the comments, but it's creator-committee@streetepistemologyinternational.org. Don't worry, I'll write that in the comments, and then I can provide you with a Zoom link, and I'd look forward to seeing you on Thursday, June 30th at 9 p.m.
Awesome.
Imagine I had a friend who just asked me a few days ago to potentially become a creator. They wanted to do something. Would they contact you first, or just show up in the meeting?
Well, you have to contact me first, and I'd like to have a chat with you just to see your level of comfort, and we want to meet you before we do this. And then if our conversation progresses, then I'll give you a Zoom link, and then you'd show up at 9 p.m. on Thursday.
Are there qualifications? Do I have to be at least this old, this smart, this something? Do I have to be of the right religion?
Anybody can practice SE. Anybody can. It is. And sorry if you hear my dog howling in the background. I have a dog who's blind and deaf, and if I walk onto the other room, she thinks I could go get her. So 1 second. I'll be right back.
Accidentally took him out. Anyway.
Oops. Yeah, that's fine.
we'll read some comments.
Yeah. So,
yeah. Hey,
go ahead.
Gina, you go ahead.
In 9 days, my friend Matthew Havertz, he's an LDS missionary, will probably be our ringer for the Tuesday College show. And he very much wants to get into creating SE content. And I'm fascinated. I want to watch that.
Oh, wow. So he definitely should come to the meeting then. We'll give him the info.
He said, I want to go on the classes. I want to figure out the course. I want to become certified. I want to go whatever that is in order to do good SE content. So, for anybody who's not aware, I did a four session series with Matthew for over a year and a half or so. He's an LDS missionary, and he ended up using street epistemology with his father regards anti-vax, and had great success with it. So he's interested in following that up.
Very cool. So where were you, Mark? You were talking about the Zoom meeting.
So I'd just like to have a chat with you, and I'd like to, it's not a huge hurdle thing, but I want to know we'd like to know what your intentions are, and and what your goals are for SE. And we just because this is an SEI, Student Epistemology International sponsored event, and if we want to move forward, we want people whose street epistemology's values, and those can be kind of loosely stated, that are just aligned. That you're using the force for good, basically.
I want to do street epistemology in order to change people's mind about eating meat.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. So people, and people do. I think we've had these conversations before. People do street epistemology, perform street epistemology, practice street epistemology for a variety of reasons, and that's fine. I mean, I think probably the three of us would vary somewhat on why we would say we practice as street epistemology, and so that's not, we don't have to be exactly aligned that way. But we just loosely, we want people who practice SE to do good in the world, however we define that, however that is defined. I don't know. What do you think, guys?
I want to know what the disqualification criteria are.
Yeah, it's not really.
Could you give me an example of someone whom you would reject, and for what reason?
Yeah, good point. So maybe let's say you're a person who's made it clear that you don't like SE, and you're working against SE, and you're trying to thwart what street epistemologists are trying to do. Well, there's a time and place for everything, and we'd love to talk to you, and we'd love to have conversations with you. But this is not what that meeting's about. This meeting is about people who want to practice street epistemology and want to further that specific cause. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sorry, fair. Daniel.
Yes. Yeah.
But by the way, just on the record, Daniel Ray is my favorite critic of SE. I really like him.
No, love critics of street epistemology. Actually makes what we do better, I think. To have people super critical about us, it helps us look inward and makes us better, makes our practice better, I think. And but again, there's a time and place for everything, and this is for people who want to learn who want to not just learn street epistemology, but want to also get to the point where they're producing their own content, and they're showing their content and want to show their content to other people. And there might be different roadblocks to that, and people have different roadblocks to doing that. You name it. Probably the biggest roadblock to producing your own content, in my mind, and tell me what you guys think about this, is probably just fear. I mean, just like, gosh, am I going to put myself out there? I mean, I'm going to actually have a conversation with somebody and show it to, the tens of or 2 or 3 people who might watch it. I mean,
dozens.
Exactly.
Going out in the park alone, anything could happen.
Yeah. Right, exactly. There's a fear to it. I get it. And but I think the risk is low because right off the bat, when you're practicing truth epistemology, your intentions typically are good, that you're just trying to have a conversation with somebody, and the worst that could happen is that it's not street epistemology, but you've just had a good conversation. And so there's not too much risk involved. And we truly want more people to try it. So there's other obstacles, and I think sometimes people aren't very familiar with equipment stuff, like how to use equipment well to get a recording, and you don't really need too much, honestly, to make a recording, camera and audio wise. And I think those are probably the two biggest obstacles. You guys think of anything else? Why?
Do I need to record to learn street epistemology?
Record?
Yeah, I can't stand. I'm giving you an alternate here. I can't stand the sound of my voice. I can't stand to be recorded. Can I still do SE?
It is so painful for me to watch myself. And I do it because I found that it really makes me a better street epistemologist when I can actually sit down and watch myself make mistakes. There's actually, honestly, the biggest learning experiences I've had is not only when I force myself to really watch myself doing street epistemology. The biggest learning moments is when we do the review shows and people are reviewing my SE and they're coming up with stuff I hadn't even considered. And it really makes me reconsider how I do certain things. So it's just, even if, you don't want to produce that much content just for production's sake, it's a really good way to get better.
So I take it from that answer, the answer is yes. I need to record to do street epistemology well.
You don't have to. What do you think, Dali?
Oh, me personally? Oh, I was asking the question. Yeah,
I don't know what you think.
I find it very, very useful to either record or have an audience. Either one of them will do, especially if my audience is someone I'm in contact with. I mean, like in person, right? Because I can get feedback from them. Yeah. I suck at remembering the details of the conversation that I just had. What I remember of it looks an awful lot like highlight notes, not detailed stuff. And I'm not great at reading the room. There might have been some weird, long, strange communication and weird stuff that I was unaware of. Yeah. Because I was deeply thinking about what they were talking, whatever it was I was distracted with. For me, that time just goes, and from the outside, oh, okay, I see.
Yes, I think along with that, when I'm practicing SE, I might be thinking about the last thing they've said to form a good question, and I'm not thinking about what they're saying currently, and I missed something completely that might be more germane to the conversation. And when I go look back at it, I'm like, oh, I missed this really important part here, and it teaches me how to train my attention on certain things, I think. And just learning from your mistakes, it seems to really, there's just nothing like it.
Yeah. And the mistakes aren't anything like fatal.
Nah.
They might be fatal to one particular conversation. I'm remembering one very obvious mistake I made of bringing up Tiktaalik to somebody who was young earthing. And I reviewed that one, and it's like night and day. Everything was going, defense, boom, boom, boom. And from there, there was defense, and that was it. And I spoke to the guy after, 15 minutes later, and there was no defense. He was totally cool. There was no long-lasting anything, but the consideration stopped. The reconsideration, the review stopped on the interlocutor's part, I think.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think, and as far as, I've had just mildly embarrassing things that'll happen. Like I say dumb things, or just not understanding what they're saying, or, not understanding saying just ignorant things about someone's religion or things like that, and it happens. But it's nothing that you can not rebound from, and SE is really supposed to be, the remedy to having these kinds of conversations that on the face of it can I like that on the face of it can be look bad on its face. This is really sort of corrects for that, I think.
And I think this meetup is really good for getting connections. Maybe people will come to the meeting from the same area or city, maybe, and they don't even know they're interested in SE, and they're already in a close geographic areas. And it's much easier to go out in public if you're with someone else and you're just kind of hanging out together.
And I learned that, as you see the picture, is a really cool picture. This is when I met Dali and Reid for the first time out in Palm Springs, California. And I was very nervous because, I've never done SE in front of other people. And then also done SE in front of people that I learned SE from. So it was awesome meeting these guys. And, I learned a lot just by hanging out. And I was, seeing how they set up their equipment, what equipment they use. And also we got to discuss SE. And before that, I kind of did my SE on my own kind of for a while before I joined the community. And I just learned so much just discussing free epistemology with another human. And I thought that was cool. And the most important thing when you go out with another person is that the other person can busk.
Right.
That one of the hardest things is that when you're out by yourself in a park or whatever, it's really hard to get people because you're sitting there with your equipment and you, for obvious reasons, you can't leave your equipment behind. So you're kind of wed to the area where you are. And it helps if someone else can go just, hey, look it over, see this person over here? This person over here just wants to have a nice conversation, and then kind of tell them what SE is about and what we're doing. And that really, really helps have these conversations.
Quinn taught me to do that.
To busk?
Quinn questions. Yeah, he taught me to busk. I busk in a Quinn style.
You are good at busking. It's hard for me to busk. It's hard, but it's just hard. It's difficult for me to go up to somebody I don't know and start talking.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part.
I have to admit, I did busk some before I did street epistemology. I used to teach juggling, and at the juggling school, they would send someone out to busk pretty much all the time. But my busking while juggling was silent. I would walk out into the crowd juggling and then lock eye contact with somebody who was watching, walk up to them, and then start juggling with them, ask them to throw the ball in and just start that. And that's how I would busk. There was no call out. So I had to learn to vocally engage. Yeah.
Were you a mime?
Yeah. No, I was just juggling out in the crowd.
I don't understand why you couldn't talk.
It wasn't that I couldn't talk. It's that I didn't talk until I locked eyes with somebody and then walked right up into their face.
Okay.
And put a ball in their hand, and they would start throwing in and things like that. Whereas with street epistemology busking, I have to call out to people.
I see. Yeah.
And I'll usually do something like, we have free water today and free speech, or something of that order.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. But whatever it is, it doesn't have to be wildly clever as long as they get the idea of the opportunity that's there.
Right. And I probably have way more people who turn me down than agree to have a conversation with me. And I think that's not unusual. Or maybe it's just my terrible style of busking.
Almost everybody I know, initially at least, hates the sound of their voice.
Yeah, that's true.
Even me.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's
after having hours of listening to myself through this microphone and the other microphones out, and I know what I sound like now, and it's not so bad.
Well, I don't know. I mean, actually, Reid, you have more of a radio, kind of a boomy radio voice. I think your voice is sort of made for this, except for my whiny, tinny voices.
You have an awesome and no, Mark, I don't think you have a whiny, tinny voice. Not at all. In any case, almost everybody dislikes the way they sound, and they don't sound bad. They sound fine. They sound good. They sound engaging. So, and we can't know that. We just have to get that from feedback.
Right. Yeah.
But you're not nearly as bad as you think.
No.
Almost everybody is true.
We're always our own.
You don't sound nearly so bad.
Yeah. So, really, and there are a lot of people who are trying this. Since I've started, I was doing podcasts for a while before I did YouTube, and the only reason why I started doing YouTube videos again was when I went out to Palm Springs and I saw you guys do it, and I said, this is not. I could do this. Like, if I could create a podcast, I mean, if I can record my voice, I can record myself too. It shouldn't be.
You were doing it for a year before you. I mean, you had already been doing it. You just did it without video, but this is a mostly audio thing anyway.
Right, but I don't know why. I think I didn't have someone like myself, as we are doing with this new committee, this content creator stuff that we're doing. But I didn't have someone until I met you guys to kind of push me along, it's like, why aren't you doing YouTube or videos? And I didn't really have a good answer, except for, I don't know. I mean, I guess I just thought it was more difficult than it was. I'm just not sure. And to be clear, when I first started doing video, my first videos were pretty bad, really bad, but I got better at it. And then, Reid was very helpful, telling me like what cameras to get and then editing software. And I had to learn that. And, it was a little difficult at first to learn things like Final Cut, but it's not insurmountable. And now I kind of I really enjoy using Final Cut, to be honest. And I remember when I first I got my 360 GoPro, and I didn't know how to understand the settings, and like my frames kept drifting back and forth, and I kept it looked like somebody was just swaying the camera as I was talking, and I didn't know what I was doing, but it gets better. It's all good. So it's part of it.
Yeah, it's all part of it. And there was a great stream on Will's Inspire Reflection channel with Anthony and I and Joe and Will talking about all the intricacies of creating SE content on his channel. And it was like 2 hours, 40 minutes. Wow. That was a long time. But so if you can't make it to the Zoom meeting, this is a great resource as well.
Yeah. And there's just so many ways to skin that cat. I mean, there's, and also, with whatever budget you have, there's just, there's really, there's different ways to do this. There's interesting when I, toured around with Reid, and we went on we were working on the Peter Boghossian project, the documentary, and I got to see how a professional production was done. And, of course, that's with a huge budget and with really high-tech stuff. And it's really, really cool. But you can get almost there with a lot less money. And basically, when we were shooting these, huge shots with these really expensive cameras, we were getting 3 angles, basically 3 angles in audio. And you can use $1,000 of equipment for cameras and stuff to do that, but you can actually use less equipment, much less equipment, less expensive equipment, and really get almost there.
Yeah. So much available, even just with your smartphone.
Even with your
Technology's
phone.
come a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll just reset the room here, as they say in Clubhouse. We're doing a call-in show for Street Epistemology. If you're just coming across this on Twitter or Facebook or something, Street Epistemology is a way of having conversations with people about anything. And you can come on and make a claim, something you believe is true, and we can discuss it together to figure out if the reasons you have for that are justified. In a friendly
Thanks,
way.
guys. I didn't want to usurp your time with people who may
Hardly.
have claims.
No worries. Thanks for coming on, Mark.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. And I'll. I don't know if you have someone in the wings or not, but
No, but Dali and I will chat about stuff.
okay.
All right, we'll see you at the meeting.
Yeah, that's right. We'll see you at the meeting, and I really hope to see you there. Thanks.
Thanks.
Could you put that link in the chat before you?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Now. Thank you.
And then I'll copy and paste that over to Matthew.
Gotcha. Thanks, Mark. Sweet. That was nice. Alrighty. Yes, we are doing a call-in show. Feel free to call in. There's a bunch of chats that have happened. Anything interesting there? Not really. Yeah, definitely smartphones are great. Cool. So another thing to potentially talk about, speaking of Will, he did another show, I think 2 days ago, yesterday actually. Just a general community discussion show about SE. And he had an interesting topic he brought up around hard versus soft SE. And I don't know if we want to do a review show of this section, but that'd be fun to do.
Yep. If anybody calls in, we'll just interrupt the review show and get back to it.
Yeah, feel free to interrupt us.
Fantastic. So, Noah, you wanted to talk about addressing relativists.
Yeah, and we talked about this briefly beforehand.
Wait a minute.
Right. So we've got two more topics, but I'm just going to go ahead and roll them into each other because I think they're very much related here. So we've got about half an hour-ish left on the clock. So I don't know if we're going to...
Hang on. There's a comment here. I'm not able to call in, but I'm curious. Is it fair to boil faith down as a willingness to pretend?
I don't think so.
There's many usages of faith.
I've known many people. Yeah, there's many usages, no doubt about it. And I've known people who are, their faith is a lot more complex and grounded than just a willingness to pretend. And just, depending on the definition of faith, I'm not even in disagreement with a lot of faith.
Yeah.
Part of my epistemology includes trusting some authorities. I can't do the math for quantum physics, so I trust Brian Cox and Sabine Hassenfelter that they've got it right, and what they're saying is probably true. Now, I don't have anywhere near the confidence that they do, but my confidence is high that the standard model of particle physics is a good predictor.
Yeah, it's all about the level of confidence, and depending on which claim, you don't want to be overly confident depending on what your actual evidence is. If it's merely authority, maybe you shouldn't be as confident as the actual authorities. Closely connected to the data.
But for some versions of faith, that means I have faith in the scientists. Yes, I do.
The chat mark. Here we go. We'll post that in the comments. That is the email address if you want to email Mark.
Thank you. I'll email Matthew.
Yeah, and we'll hope to see you at the greater Zoom meeting. All right. Anyway, back to this.
Have all of the meat on this particular carcass, but I wanted to talk about soft. What I'm sort of this is not a term that's bandied around, right? But it's one in which I'm sort of just going to use loosely in this conversation to sort of designate these ideas, right? And so the idea is the difference between soft and hard SE. And I'll explain what that means in a moment. But we also want to tie this to David. I believe you went out and sort of did what I think you discovered. How did you phrase it? You were doing what was it you were doing for Peter Boghossian? Damage control. I think you phrased it, which I totally understand.
I mean, that's the only way that I can think about it right now because, well, I don't know how much context we want to give here, but.
As much as you like.
There was the reverse Q&A tour. Peter Boghossian went out with some street epistemologists and film crew and really high quality, awesome, editing and a lot of props for that. I think there's even like drone footage and you're into.
It's a necessary tool for street epistemology. No conversation can happen unless you've got a drone. I'm...
And David's on epistemology looks like he's listening in. That's awesome. Hey David.
Woohoo, David.
My wife doesn't believe me either.
Find a friend with a drone. Yeah, find a friend with a drone and you're all set. But yeah, and a lot of the stuff is really great. I think that it does inspire reflection with the participants and with the people watching it possibly. There was a
thank you. And actually all of the footage from that PSU campus was shot with GoPros and iPhones. We didn't even bring the high quality stuff because we were worried about potentially getting kicked off if we brought stuff like that because we didn't really have a student connection. We were canceled from Brown, so we just figured go to PSU. So that was all iPhones and GoPros. So anyway,
what's the right word? Not conflict or anyway. There was
altercation.
Altercation, yeah, that happened at
confrontation. There was no physical violence or anything.
Portland State University, and you can go and look it up and check it out. That I don't think went very well, and it kind of we found out that it probably damaged that community that was conducted, and it wasn't really SE in the way that I think of it, mainly because he was bringing the claim and asking people to say how much they agreed with the claim.
If I could just jump in because I think just a bit of context. So for anybody that's not familiar, Peter Boghossian is the father of the term street epistemology. He created this concept of the idea in its original form in the book A Manual for Creating Atheists. Describes it as very much an anti-theistic and anti-religious narrative. Since doing that, he's kind of not really been a major component of the street epistemology community, and actually proponents like Anthony Magnabosco, whose YouTube channel was inspired by that initial idea that he found in that book. I think Anthony will say over the last 7 or 8 years now, he's very much changed what street epistemology is, and the version of street epistemology that's now understood and practiced by most people is very much not the street epistemology described by Peter Boghossian in that book. And yet, the origin is certainly there, and the sort of the elements of it are certainly there. Peter Boghossian also wrote a second book called How to Have Impossible Conversations with Graham Lindsay, and that book again sort of touches on street epistemology related ideas, but it isn't actually talking about SE specifically. And I think it's fair to say that both books have their issues. At the very least, both books have their challenges. So recently, watching Peter go out and sort of start to get back into the street epistemology thing, by his own admission, he's saying, he hasn't done this for so long, and he's trying to get back into it and try and figure it out again. This is him. I'm kind of curious, and I didn't really get a view whether or not he really felt that this was SE, but clearly the SE community felt that this was a great example of seeing the guy who created this idea go out there and practice it. And we did an SE review show. James Lindsay, did I say Graham Lindsay? I always do that. Thank you, Gigi. I really appreciate that. I always get that wrong. James Lindsay, my apologies. But yeah, so he went out. He did this. These interviews that were billed as a reverse Q&A. It wasn't billed as street epistemology. But he went out and did this, and yeah, it certainly. I as part of somebody who was on the panel that reviewed that, like, you know, I can say that we didn't feel like this was SE at all, and for many of the reasons you described. But then, as you say, it also went very badly at the back end. So you went back to that university with Nathan, I believe. Did you?
Let me try to add some context. Yeah, the tour was billed as a reverse Q&A tour. He did a pilot at PSU years ago where there was just kind of a panel set up where students could come up and they would just talk, and he would ask questions from the audience. Like, he's not at the front and the students are asking him questions. He's in the audience asking them questions. That was the original intent, mainly for platforming people who feel like they couldn't speak on college campuses. So yeah, the first event was at USC and it went okay. We had just like a point and people could go up and speak, and then we listened, and then other people came up, and then there was a kind of discussion in the audience. That was kind of okay, but not the most engaging way to go about it. But the next one at Northern Arizona, we did kind of inspired by the Spectrum videos, but not quite. Instead of a Spectrum, it was just mainly agree and disagree at that event. So we had a claim on the board, like, I don't feel like I can say what I think in class, agree, disagree. And people came up both on agree and disagree, and then they spoke, and then another side spoke, and Peter asked them questions. And I don't think we were visualizing it as street epistemology at that point for sure. But then we started doing the Spectrum game where it's actually the lines on the floor. And at first, Peter was even involved in that. Like, he would go to a line at Purdue. That was the next thing we did. So that just is a totally different format from what we were starting with. And that was it was still biased, though. It was still not aligned with like SE values and probably, stuff like that.
By having people on a spectrum encouraged to give reasons and essentially argue against each other, you're removing this ability to get down to the epistemology without triggering the defenses. So you get down to the defenses, and then you see how good people are at defending their position, not why they got there or how they could anything else.
Yeah, so that was the third stop, Purdue, where we started the Spectrum game, and then we had 5 more locations after that. Berkeley, we started doing it outside instead of just interviewing students one-on-one about stuff. We did the Spectrum game outside, and Bogosian was still rusty in terms. Nathan and I were there trying to coax him to do it more of a SE style, more neutrally, more focused on epistemology, and we tried to focus. It was more focused on epistemology at Berkeley. And none of the videos from the event itself have come out yet, and it was better. And each event, each location in Colorado we did next, it was even better. And at the actual event at Colorado, it was a turning point thing. So it was mainly conservative people there, and it's just a different vibe. And he questioned.
Was it turning point thing? What is turning point?
Turning Point is a conservative college club, nationwide.
Okay. Okay. So this was an organization at that college that was
hosting him,
supporting or hosting. Thank you.
Yeah,
okay.
Mainly hosting. Yeah. And it's super conservative group hosting Pete, the liberal atheist, and Pete questioned conservatives about a very conservative topic at that event, and that video will come out soon. But over time, I think Pete did get more aligned, asking questions neutrally. But sometimes he got more into like a trollish type mode, depending. So I don't think we ever got to like a really nice and pure neutral SE from Pete. But it was much better than debating or merely having the students talk and ask questions. I think this format was really engaging. I want to see it continue and evolve. I know the Jubilee Spectrum format was what we inspired it on, but they just had people talk amongst themselves. But if you had like an SE type moderator to actually see and question people's reasons and then bounce back and forth, we allowed people to move lines, and they did move lines as they heard each other's arguments. That was interesting. You'll see those coming.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I especially value that.
And we like ask them, well,
No matter which way they move.
Yeah. And asking the one, I've never seen this question asked in Jubilee. Under what conditions would you need to learn to move a line? I've never seen that in the Jubilee videos, and that is the one thing I'd always wanted to see, and that happened virtually at every point when Bogosian was doing it. And that's the main thing. So
Jubilee is a YouTube channel. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they do this, get people from different perspectives and have them argue. Well, I'm not sure if argues. Yeah, I guess argue.
It sometimes gets into arguments amongst themselves.
Oh yeah. It's sometimes quite fiery.
Yeah, I'll try to find a video to share here of like a spectrum version of it. Here's Do All Feminists Agree? I think this was,
More so as just being.
I'll try to, they flip them up and they just start a line and move. Here we go. Wow, they've like really up their production value.
Men can be feminist. 3, 2, 1, go. I mean, I'm wearing a hoodie that says men can be feminists too. I feel like I have to be over here.
I think most men.
See, and then they just allow them to talk amongst themselves. There's no moderator like going into each one individually to ask for their reasons. They're just talking, and that's interesting. But it's like, if you had a facilitator focused on epistemology, I think that would make the show much better. We have someone
good.
In the queue. Hello, Alex. Yeah, 2 fingers. Yeah, okay, great. So yeah, we'll bring him on. Hey, Alex, welcome.
Good day, Alex.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Great.
Doing well.
Yeah, great to hear.
Yeah, that's all today.
Yeah, I have a topic I'd like to talk about with you, and it's about a specific application of street epistemology. And I got in contact with a woman who is going to set up a meeting group or self-help group for people who are currently in a toxic relation or try to recover from it. And I got to talk to her, and I told her about street epistemology and did I know about it and practice it for a few months. And and I was thinking about how far you could use street epistemology to help people who are currently in toxic relations to reflect about this, because I think that in toxic relations, often some kind of manipulation is involved and is changing the cognition of these people. And I just wanted to hear your ideas about it or concerns. Yeah.
Well, let me try to. Are you saying SE could potentially be used to persuade women to leave toxic relationships, or is that what you mean?
Not exactly, but I think it could help to reflect about the current situation.
So I'm hearing you're saying that there's manipulation can be a charged word or not, going on. And I think the net result would be that somebody would be in a relationship and manipulated, maybe a little gaslit, maybe there's some other words that go along, that where they would not recognize what somebody from the outside would recognize. So to borrow from Cersei, like maybe inoculating them against the glamours that keep them thinking that things are normal or things are acceptable when they're not.
Yes, that's exactly what it's about. And even further, they think that that all the problems are on their side, that they are the cause for the problems even.
Right. That would be the natural effect of gaslighting, I think, is to problematize the victim as opposed to the perpetrator or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
so SE question for this: if you were to like review my relationships or a hypothetical relationship, would you have good ways to know whether or not there's something toxic going on in there? And how could I know that this was actually a problem compared to someone just problematizing or maybe pathologizing what is otherwise normal, acceptable behavior? How do I think that's the distinction, that somebody going in and saying, is my relationship toxic? I don't know. That's probably what they're dicing on, right? Is,
how
can I tell? So tell me, how do you tell?
Is it my job?
And maybe you're not the person I should be asking. I don't know.
Yeah. But I don't think it's my job to tell them if they are in a toxic relation. I think it's their own job to recognize it.
Okay. What bellwethers, what flags could I use to recognize it?
Yeah, I would rather ask them questions. What would a toxic relation look like for you? What kind of behavior in your partner would it need for you to say this is a toxic relation? I was thinking about such questions.
Okay. Yeah, something obviously comes out to me is like physical violence, but that would be something mainly to get like the police involved with or some other social services. You don't want to just have a conversation, leave a physically violent relationship. Like that's something that requires more than merely conversation. It's more important, more of an emergency situation, I'd assume. So
unless
short
it's consensual.
Yeah.
I don't want to throw off the spanky community. 3 of my partners are into that.
Not that kind of violence. Anyway, so short of that, I don't know. Is this like a third party seeing a couple and questioning whether they should be together? And they hypothesize they're in a toxic relationship, and one of them is being victimized. So you're thinking potentially using SE to talk with the potential victim, to just get clarity around that, making sure everything is okay or not okay. Is that what you're saying?
I think the kind of people this woman is approaching are victims that are recognizing that something isn't correct. But
so before they're approached, they've already opted into that they are they're in need of some intervention.
Yeah, but or just I think it can be a hard progress or way from recognizing that something isn't correct to really acknowledge where the problems lie. Yeah.
So it's like the potential victim is confiding in you privately and wants to talk with you about the relationship. Is SE a good way to talk with them about it? Probably. Yeah.
Sure.
Like,
especially if you can stay really, really neutral. This is really important that you don't throw your own bias in, because you might look at something and something turns you off that doesn't bother them at all. You know, what do you mean they make you cook them breakfast every morning? Maybe that annoys me, but maybe I really like cooking breakfast for people.
It's like the central claim would be, I feel like I'm being abused, or I feel like I'm being manipulated, like gaslit. You could just, that's the claim. Then what are your reasons for that? Have them explain some potential evidence, and then, brainstorm potential alternative hypotheses for why that's happening. Try to figure out what are some reasonable predictions, way to test the claim. If you talk with if the potential victim talks with the spouse about it, do you predict things will escalate or things will be cleared up? I don't know. I have no experience with this, so I have no idea.
And I think in this case, the street epistemologist needs to lean heavily into not giving advice. While that's a good idea in most SE, it's a really, really good idea in these environments, so that my bias as a questioner doesn't just reinforce them. Because anytime I hear one person's side, it's very easy to be convinced to their side. And so I don't want to take any convincing that they do and reinforce into their process.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. You just hear one side of two people, and it might also be that the other person is claiming the same things. I think these are very good points, and the most important point is to be for the SE practitioner to only reflect and not give opinions or influence the opinion of this person.
Yeah. And who's toxic and when turns out to take a month and talk about just in court recently.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not cut and dried.
Yeah. Do you have any concerns about this approach in this specific environment?
Yeah, I guess you could potentially cause people to break up or divorce for not good reasons if you don't do it that well. Yeah.
If you're not careful, you'll cross into doing things that only trained counselors should do. If you can avoid giving advice and you can avoid taking a side, then you're just someone listening and helping them think out their thing. As soon as you do the other ones, you should have more training before you go in, and maybe somebody looking over your shoulder.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you could also help someone rationalize staying in a toxic relationship. That would also be bad. So
yeah. Either situation is bad if you're wrong.
Mm-hmm. But if you need to get to the truth, maybe SE is the way to go. Don't ever ask Reddit. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Sweet. Well, never had that question before. That was new.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Cool. Yeah. I so often get friends talking to me about what they should do in a situation. And I think oftentimes they are frustrated that I don't tell them an answer. I walk them through the whole thing, and then they get to the point where, okay, so you're going to give me a conclusion. I go, nope, you're going to have to come up with that one for your own. I'm a sounding board. I'm a ask you questions about. No, I can't help you make up the choice. Now, if the choice has arithmetic in it, I'm help you. Sure. You want to know the area under the curve of the cost of the burn rate of the such and such of your business plan? I'll write a spreadsheet. It'll be fine. I'm not taking a side. Just like, if you take these assumptions, you'll get these results.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Yeah. Thanks for the call in. Yeah, and we were still open for call-ins if anyone else wants to call in. But in the meantime, we'll get back to this video. I forget where we were. We'll just continue.
I don't hear the video.
You don't hear the video? Hang on. Maybe I didn't have a thing checked. Sure tab audio.
The videos, if not all of them,
Now I hear.
have like a label of street epistemology or a tag of street epistemology
Right,
in
that's
it.
true. Yeah.
and that's kind of where I was a little bit concerned.
Yeah, there are tags with street epistemology for the spectrum videos, even the ones that get a little heated. Those are debatable for sure, even though Boghossian explains that he's trying to do street epistemology, which he is doing the core thing of SE, which is trying to help people reflect on their reasoning and see if their confidence is justified, where they are on the line on the spectrum is the right place to be.
Mm-hmm.
He is trying to inspire reflection about that with the individuals.
It's close. So, it's close to what we think modern SE is. We're sort of defining the game of chess.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, they added the rule en passant with the pawns doing happy things. But the modern set of chess, if you're even modifying even one of those rules, you are not playing chess. You're playing something else. And there's a version called Chess 960 where the opening pieces are randomized in location, but both sides have the same mirrored location. Okay, so that's not chess, but it's a lot like chess. And if I say something isn't SE, does not mean it's bad, wrong, not useful. I highly respect what Peter's doing, and I think it disqualifies itself from SE in a couple of ways, but that's okay. It's just chess or not chess. It's not wrong.
Yep. So we can have conversations about the definition of SE once, well, we've already had Module 1 come out, so it's a conversation to have. But anyway, continue.
But the weirdest part about this whole thing is that it's like we're basically telling the person that invented this thing that they're doing it wrong, and I kind of have weird thoughts about that, because it's like, well, who am I to tell the person that invented this that they're not doing it right?
Boghossian did post the blog post on the Street Epistemology website that SE is open source, like over 5 years ago, probably now. And since then, we have changed it. It has evolved. He wrote a new book, and we incorporated a lot of stuff from his book into it, even though we were doing a lot of what's in the book already. So, I don't know. It's yeah.
I think a person's input into the definition of street epistemology is a little democratized, and sort of the person with the most input, the person with the most reach, ends up having the most effect. And every SE creator that I know has introduced things that I see in the current. I recognize some practices that that Rom brought up in the practices that never hit SE videos until we started putting them into practice. Like, don't ask the thing more than twice. If you're asking the third time, it's the chess rule. If you have to ask the same question the third time, move on to a different question, because if they didn't get it the first 2 times, it's likely to cause defense. But I think of that as the ROM rule, and I think it's a good plan. We all have little inputs to it. The SE is not firm like chess.
Right. Yep. Always evolving.
You know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
And so basically, my goal. Go ahead.
No, as I said, I can certainly understand why. I don't think you would be wrong to do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one thing to tell somebody that didn't come up with it that, give them suggestions on how they could do it better. But we're talking about the person that coined the term and all that. So just adds to more reasons why it was so weird. But basically, my goal was to show up at this place, at this university where this all happened 2 weeks prior, and give good examples of SE. I think one of the things that we can do to address bad examples of SE is to provide good examples of SE. And so my goal was to show up there in this place where this had just happened and give good examples of it and ask people what they want to talk about, what's important to them, and then go through an SE interview with them talking about whatever they want to share.
That's valid. But like you going out there, David, you don't have hundreds or very big donors donating for a specific purpose for you to go out there. Like for our tour, we had a topic to talk about, the social justice wokeness issue. Donors donated to have us go out and talk about those subjects with students and their influence. So those are the main topics we were wanting to cover. And I also have topics when I go out on my board as options. And we also on the tour didn't restrict topics to merely social justice stuff. I think it was a mistake, though. We decided to actually try to rein in the topics at events, having some way to make sure it's on topic. So that's just something to consider.
Instead of, coming up with the claim and then having them talk about it in that way.
But the question is, does the constraint of a topic make it bad SE? I don't know. If you only wanted to have talk about a certain topic, would you not want to be able to do that? Like in the beginning, we only talked about religion, and then later on, supernatural stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That was the main restriction of topics. So now it's pretty much anything political, social.
Yeah, it's wide open. It's really wide open. Well, I don't know. I think that's one of the soft rules of SE is that we would want to invite people to bring whatever they want to in the process, that we can be claim independent. And I think that's a more recent. I think that wasn't the rule in 2018. I think it's a new rule.
Yeah. Yeah. Even if you do have an agenda of wanting to potentially expose the lack of quality of a certain ideology, does that make it less honest? If you're still doing an honest conversation with someone, I don't know, hard to say.
As long as you're being clear about your goals, I don't think there's any dishonesty. And I think the more open you are about their topic, the less your bias matters. I might really, really prefer a particular topic, but if I don't suggest that topic, then it's fine. Now, maybe in my invitation, I suggest things that are like that topic. Am I doing it wrong? No, I'm being honest. Still being honest. And this isn't about being dishonest. It's about not generating defensiveness. With any defensiveness, you can't get to the epistemological answer. You can't get to the base anything.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we made it very welcoming. I've got this kind of indoor-outdoor blanket that I always take everywhere to kind of put on dirty picnic tables or dirty benches. That way they have a comfortable place to sit, make it very inviting. It was a sit-down situation, very relaxed, very chill, without, the pointed microphone everywhere, and just kind of give an example of what it has evolved into. Because I had the feeling that a lot of people came.
Although Bogosian's original classic essay didn't have microphones in people's hands, that was later.
Yeah.
So
I think that's an Anthony thing.
Yeah.
And his classic thing was much more like an intervention and asserted firm definitions for some words. And there were several things that we've just ejected.
Yeah, there's like some old stuff of like actually going out to a place for a purpose to talk with specific people for a specific topic. That's very classic SE for sure. But all of the content creation stuff around it and the effects of that. That's just new stuff to deal with. Yeah. And I like how with our sit down table, we have another microphone for the other person. It's one-on-one. This spectrum thing is a totally different thing. So ideally everyone has like a little lav on and they can talk at any time. That would help with that. So things to potentially work on for that.
Came away from that incident and attaching street epistemology to that, and I guess that kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. And so
yeah, me too.
we met there. We had some good conversations. There was the secondary goal of maybe trying to have a conversation with people that had participated in the altercation, maybe find some people. We kind of set it up to where we'd kind of be there around the same time of day and week to maybe like patch things up and see where we can give a better example of this. And I think that it went really well.
Is that reasonable? The people in the confrontation video came from out of their building to Pete, but what Pete did with them is not SE. That was just fending off a mob with a lot of patience. Even though he said what he was trying to do was SE, they didn't witness what he was doing with the Spectrum game. I'm sure if they watched one of those games happen, then they would have a better understanding of what he was doing. And I think what he's doing is fair and not malicious. So they didn't even witness what he was doing. So do they even have an idea of what street epistemology is? Maybe they have a negative thought about it because of what the topic Boghossian was trying to talk about. I don't know. If they Google street epistemology, they could find other examples. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with Parisa. He did very, very well. I think in terms of being a lot less hostile. He's not perfectly unhostile. And I'm so glad I was not there. That's the very kind of thing that I'm so afraid of in terms of going out in public and such. It would be that would have been a crash and burn for me. Couldn't handle that kind of mob pressure. I would just crumple. I'd be running away.
I would probably go back.
What? Or they were talking over.
Did you speak?
Yeah, I had a conversation that Nathan ended up joining with this guy named Matt, who I think was the kind of person that they were really looking for on that tour to talk to, because he was really clear about, I don't feel safe sharing my views here. I feel safe sharing my views, blocks away without me representing my school. I don't feel safe in this environment sharing my views, whatever the views are.
And was this the guy from the video? Did you say? Sorry, was it the same guy?
From no. So this person, he walked up as soon as they were having the altercation. He was asking people what was going on. And he was told, well, this guy, referring to Dr. Boghossian, this guy thinks there's only two genders. And so he's like, okay, well, I'm out of here, because this is not a safe place for me to be to share my views. So I'm gone. And so we talked to that person. And
yeah, so that's the kind of person we wanted to attend our reverse Q&A events. So my hope, if there was one at PSU, that's the kind of people we would wanted to show up and be able to participate in either like a Spectrum game or something.
we got a lot of insight, basically what it's like being on campus these days, and how safe people are in sharing their views. And to be clear, I'm completely I completely support the awareness that Peter Boghossian is bringing to this audience of, hey, we've got a really big problem here if students don't feel free to share their ideas on a university campus. Like, it has to be there.
I completely agree with that. Like, and I think that was the goal foundationally, was to show the idea that people can't explore ideas openly in these spaces,
right.
Spaces that are specifically designed for you to go. You're going to go when you know the least, and you're going to encounter way more ideas. And if you can't be free to express and explore these ideas, that is incredibly damaging to the psychological and intellectual well-being of people. So yeah, I
agreed. Yeah,
this foundational idea of reasons to the motivation for doing it, or at least the stated motivation for doing it, I totally agree with, and I think it's an alarming thing if people don't feel that they can speak openly in a place like a university. So
I completely support that. And so we were able to talk to this guy about all that. And I also just wanted to kind of show up and maybe have some good SE conversations, regardless of what had happened. And I was able to do that. I think one of the last uploads I had was talking to this gal about her topic that she wanted to talk about was mental wellness. And that conversation got interrupted by somebody who was clearly not mentally well, enters the plaza, and he's yelling to the top of his lungs.
Yeah, did you see that video? What a coincidence. That David video. Very sad.
Probably not that one.
Oh, yeah. Ooh.
I have a big backlog.
Yeah.
And is just like, I don't know if he was on drugs or, like, I have no idea. But we had to end the conversation because we got pretty uncomfortable with that. And it was just so ironic that the topic was mental wellness. So, fun. Portland's an interesting city. I'll just
it
say
certainly
that.
sounds it. Yeah. I think it's really good that you guys did that. Like, that's such an amazing idea, like, to try to go and sort of rebuild the reputation slightly of SE, I guess. I think I totally agree with this idea of going and trying to surface the idea that people aren't feeling comfortable to express certain views on campus and explore certain views, and have the right to be wrong about something, and like learn to be better, rather than feel like I can't even say this for fear that certain ideas can't be explored. It's such a dangerous narrative, and so that's 100% useful. But I do think that Peter wasn't doing SE by any modern SE standard, and I think that it's fine. If what Peter thought he was doing, if he really feels that that's actually super effective and is achieving his goals, that's great. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm trying to negate his right to do it. I would say that what he was doing to me didn't.
Ooh, looks like we got a caller. Oh, hey, it's Diamond. What's up, Diamond?
Woohoo!
Hey.
Hey.
How's it going?
Great.
Going great.
I was just calling in to check if you all had discussed the new book out, David McCraney's book, How Minds Change.
We haven't this show.
Yeah.
Not yet. I've got mine over there. I've been reading it. I'm 3/4 of the way through. It's great.
Oh, wow. Dang, you're fast. I skipped straight to the SE chapter.
I skimmed that at first. Yeah.
Oh. Not to change topics too much from what you guys were watching, but it was interesting talking about like what SE is and how it's defined and how it's changed, and how it was kind of cool seeing David McCraney write about all the similarities he saw in many different sort of disciplines that are kind of co-inventing similar sort of approaches. So yeah, if you haven't gotten your copy, I'd certainly recommend it. It's just came out on Tuesday, I think it was, something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I was kind of hoping for more, because the subtitle is the surprising science of belief, opinion, and persuasion. So I was hoping for more like hard science articles in it, you know, and it's still not there, I think, in terms of the science behind it isn't as thorough as I would hope, which maybe isn't surprising. I guess it's new, right?
Yeah, he has science stuff about very technical things about the brain, but like
Right.
actual conversations, I think deep canvassing was the only thing that was close. But deep canvassing is that whole chapter is, it was kind of like seeing how there's so much stuff that we would never do in SE in deep canvassing.
Mhm.
It's like so if we're not going to be doing that, and there's data about deep canvassing, there's really no way to tell, at least scientifically, about how effective SE is.
How to separate it. Yeah.
Yeah. They're a little exclusive of each other. Yes.
And it's kind of ironic that there hasn't been more. I mean, because this conversation's like as old as society, right? So you would think that when I think about where would that science happen, it would be in the psychology departments, I would think, for the most part. And how has that? But maybe it bleeds too much into the sociology departments, and that I don't know. Maybe no one's like laid claim to it that much. I'm not sure why it hasn't been more developed as a field, I guess, is kind of what I'm wondering.
There's a question as to whether it's an intervention or not. And then if we call it and we make it an intervention, like Peter would normally have come from, then if we're going to study it, we have to go through human studies boards, and they get real picky with us when we start to study it. So there's a big wall about making sure that what we're doing is something professional and so on. And I think we're trying to actually avoid crossing into areas where we need to be a professional to be safe.
So if it's not an intervention, is it easier to study then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's it may not be easier to study because interventions are specifically easy to study.
Oh,
because
right.
you can take a group that gets an intervention and a group that doesn't, and see if you make a difference between them. And then if we're not doing an intervention, what are we measuring?
Yeah, there's a binary yes/no ballot. You can test if someone votes yes or no, and that's a good way to test the effectiveness of an intervention, like deep canvassing. But SE is just wide open for any belief, and it's like, degrees of confidence. Is that what we're measuring? Not really. You can move more confident to something false. That would be bad. We want to calibrate our confidence to something that is most reasonable. So that's really hard.
Yeah.
There's something that we can measure that comes almost for free, because we have a large library of SE conversations, probably a 4-digit number. And we could measure what is the presenting epistemology of the claimant. Now, I don't know that measures SE so much, but it would measure for the people that self-select to come into SE conversations, where do they fall in what categories of how they believe? That's something we could measure. Does that help?
That'd be great. That'd be something.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, it's the self-select effect too, I guess. So yeah, I don't know who would necessarily be interested in that particular group, or if that's, I mean, certainly I think SE creators would be interested in it. But would that appeal to like the broader science community? I don't know. And Gina asked if she can borrow my copy. Yes, Gina, you can definitely borrow my copy when I'm done. Also, everybody should ask their local library to get a copy, because libraries are pretty good about just ordering books for you if they don't have it, especially a new one like this. I know I'm going to get my local college to get it. if they haven't ordered it already. So, but
Sweet. Yeah, maybe we should do a book review stream on this channel about it in a few weeks or something.
yeah,
Give everyone a chance to read it. Oh yeah, let's just plan for that. Maybe
do
in
the
2 weeks
SE
or
book
so.
club.
Yeah,
Yeah.
SE book club. How minds change in like 2 or 3 weeks. Try and get the book and read it, and we'll do another like call-in show about it.
Yeah, that'd be
People
cool.
can call in and give their thoughts. Maybe do a couple episodes on it.
Mhm.
That'd be nice.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah. Want to continue watching this video with us at Diamond or
Sure.
anything else?
Yeah, I'll listen in.
Okay. We're talking about hard versus soft SE. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Can you hear that? You can hear that?
I cannot.
Hang on. Try that again.
Effective and is achieving his goals, that's great. Like it's fine. Like I'm not trying to negate his right to do it. I would say that what he was doing to me didn't seem very effective. That was the first thing I noticed about it.
boy.
Like I just genuinely didn't think it was working. And I think most of the observation I had was that not only is this not SE, but it demonstrates why SE is actually more effective than this particular approach. Now, in response to that,
What are you talking about, Will, though? You think the confrontation video was an attempt at SE with the mob? I don't think that was an attempt of SE, though.
I would suspect maybe the spectrum approach is what he's saying, that wasn't an effective application of it, and that it led to the confrontation. I don't know. I'm guessing, but
Yeah, maybe confused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there have been some suggestions that the SE has become much more softer, like a soft version of SE. SE is less aggressively pursuing and challenging ideas, and is sort of a more softly approach. Now, I can sort of understand that intuition. I really do feel that that's like something that's definitely changed from, like, let's say, fire and brimstone Bogosian Old Testament SE to New Testament love and hugs and Jesus SE. And I think that there's a sort of very significant transition, but the question might be what's motivated that transition. Like, if that transition has just been motivated by the fact that we shouldn't be having difficult and aggressive conversations, then that would be a bad reason, right? If that's just a de facto, bad thing, then and actually these other this sort of fire and brimstone SE is actually way more effective at challenging people's views and inspiring people to reflect and genuinely getting them to to come to better ideas about the world. Then we should be doing the old school SE, right? But then the question is that the reason? And have we softened SE not because it's makes it nicer and more lovey-huggy, but have we softened SE because actually we've noticed that that's actually more effective? And I genuinely, my feeling on this is that the softer version of SE is more effective. Now, I know everybody in the audience and everybody here is going to say, well, feelings, Will, are not a great way to come to truth, right? So the question is, how do we validate these two different ways of doing it? It's super hard to test this, right? But I think my evidence...
I'm still not clear on how you're defining soft versus hard. I guess the hard is going out with an intention to talk with someone about a specific claim and attempting to induce doubt. Is that the hard version? And there's like less of a significance on rapport. But we don't have any recorded conversations of Peter Bogosian doing the classic hard SE. All we have is like stuff in the book, and those aren't even close to what we were thinking it was. Like when Anthony started out, was that a hard SE as well? With the street preachers, or was he hard SE even up to, the campus videos at first? Where did this switch, and how do we tell? I don't know.
nuance that I would bring to this debate discussion would be the number of street epistemology conversations I've seen where aggression has resulted in a perception, in my view, of the interlocutor disengaging or stepping back or not. Whenever the street epistemologist has entered a mode of conversation that I would say is more akin to the old school SE, I've definitely noticed the interlocutor seemingly disengaged. Now, I can't say if later on they, in the shower the next day, have not reflected more honestly and openly as a result of that indication. So maybe it is more effective. I can't know that. But I can certainly see that the more softly approach seems to demonstrate efficacy in the moment. Like I think that there's plenty of YouTube videos out there where we could compare and contrast efficacy of an individual conversation just purely in terms of how the interlocutor seems to be relating to and responding to the conversation. Now, it's not a good measure. I don't know if like the more aggressive conversations haven't been more effective in changing minds, but I do suspect the people that want the more aggressive conversation don't want it because it's beneficial to the interlocutor, the conversation part. It's more entertaining, but their argument is going to be, but people watching this might be persuaded, it might be more convincing to the audience. Now it's become a debate. So I talk about the locus of the conversation, right?
Wait a minute. Does that inference
this might be persuaded, it might be more convincing to the audience. Now it's become a debate.
Is the Spectrum video like the more confrontational, trans women in sports Spectrum video got heated, but at first it was respectful. We were trying to get the reasons from both sides, and just because it got heated, it did kind of get into a debate because the people were starting to, fling arguments back at each other. So that's maybe that turned into a debate, and then that would be not SE. But like there are other Spectrum videos as well out there. I think that stayed well within a civil questioning of the epistemology. And if we had the goal of just merely having the audience change their minds about those videos, I don't think that turns the Spectrum game into a debate. What do you think?
Daniel had an interesting suggestion in the chat about defining like hard SE versus soft SE, I guess, and I'm going to expand it beyond what he said of just God's existence, but in terms of changing minds, do you think maybe hard SE would be like your goal is to change minds? Would that be hard SE? Like I'm thinking if we take like Pine Creek as an example, if people would define that as a more hard SE approach, maybe more challenging and potentially as an explicit. He doesn't actually say he wants to change anyone's mind, so maybe that's not a great example.
He says he's here to lead you to hell.
Yeah, sometimes he asks.
Sometimes he does, but sometimes he says he doesn't care. So I don't know. I guess maybe it depends on the caller.
Yeah. I think he's doing that intentionally to disarm, because when you actually listen to him, he's interested in how and why, and what is for the audience.
Right.
I don't think most of the time he's even trying to change the mind of the person he's talking to directly. He's showing how they think, letting them display it.
And coming back to Peter, I'm not even sure that we could know what Peter's motivation is. Like, I don't think it was to change people's mind per se. Maybe people who are listening, but not the people who are participating in the game or he's interviewing. Like I don't think he has a goal to change their minds, right? I mean, I don't even know how you would know what his goals are, honestly, unless he says it explicitly, which I don't think he did.
I'm trying to find that section in How Minds Change about persuasion and the ethics of persuasion. I think it's in the first introduction. Can you find that?
Yeah, I can flip and see if I find it.
It's something about how persuasion is defined. It's like a consensual thing. So and I've never seen that definition before. So
Hmm.
if it might relate to how the SE might have that goal of persuasion, but it's still a thing that is okay because of how it's defined. And let me try to find this other video where Bogosian explains what he's doing to a student before they start. I'm going to share that. And
Sure.
let me see if I actually agree with what he's doing. There we go. See that? Did I share this right? Let me make sure I'm shared it right. There we go.
Do disagree with this.
But I could be wrong.
I think the people who
Correct. A climate hypothesis.
Racist.
There we go.
Let's see if we can get people.
I like America's racist.
Well, I'll let everybody decide.
Oh, I don't know. How can you decide if there's no if there's no grounds to build off of?
You can offer a definition.
I mean,
So my role here is not to tell you what to think or anything. It's just to see if you agree with yourself.
I agree with myself. I don't wouldn't that lead people to make up their own definitions rather than
What's wrong with that?
there's no point in arguing if you all have your
Correct, but nobody's arguing.
debate?
Nobody's debating.
Oh, it's just what is it supposed to be?
Seeing if it can figure out what's true.
Oh, that's cheating, right? Because they try to convince each other.
I'm not convincing anybody of anything. I'm just paving the way for you to convince yourself of something.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Well, thank you.
All right, you want to stand on the line?
Yeah, that's an interesting phrasing. Paving the way to allow you to convince yourself of something. Is it? And it's not even necessarily convince yourself of the opposite view, right? Or is that the implication there, do you think?
I don't know. Is that honest? Because we deliberately put that topic on there, America's racist, and he doesn't believe that. I know. So I think he would want people to be persuaded against that claim,
Right.
but is he going to be able to do that? He could use SE to have them persuade themselves using their own reasoning with his guidance of Socratic questions. But does that count as him persuading them? It's hard to say.
This is a good
I
time
think
to.
you have the assumption that he would be effective and successful in persuading them in a particular direction.
What is the difference between that and someone being persuaded by someone? Is there even a distinction there? I don't know. I did find that quote though that you were looking for in the book.
Yeah, let me read that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So it says, as Daniel O'Keefe, a professor of communications, defines it, persuasion is a successful, intentional effort at influencing another's mental state through communication in a circumstance in which the persuadee has some measure of freedom.
I think that is exactly what's happening in this Spectrum video.
Successful, intentional effort. So he's intentionally trying to influence another's mental state through communication in which the persuadee has some measure of freedom. Some measures, that's really vague, some measure of freedom, but...
Yeah, I would say the more freedom, the better. Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Are you persuading me to persuade myself?
Yes, I would like you to consider changing your mind and explore it, and you might persuade yourself in whatever direction.
How else could you be persuaded? Is there a way you can be persuaded without?
Yes, absolutely. I could change my mind about something scientific if one of my teachers that I already trust told me a new paradigm, and maybe I don't even know how to resolve it further. There are some things which I take on authority to whatever degree of confidence I have. And if my authority changes their mind.
Yeah. So the goal of changing minds is in play here, I think, for Boghossian. But is it merely helping them change their minds about their own reasoning in epistemology to check the quality of their reasoning? Or is it also about the changing of their confidence in their conclusion about the claim?
I think the claim is irrelevant. You might change your mind about the claim, and you might just refine your epistemology once you review it. You might find that some of your epistemology is bubblegum and useless, but other of your epistemology is fine, and shift where you put your weight. You might find that you used to put it all on authority, and now you put it on doing the exercise yourself and convincing yourself of the thing. And you're no longer relying upon authority, but you haven't changed your mind as to the result. That's within the options.
Yeah. Let's watch a little bit of this. Hang on.
Sure.
Think there's a truth of the matter? Okay, so let me ask you one question. Do you think there's a truth of the matter about that question?
Sorry, I did not get that question.
Like, do you think that there is a truth to be known about that question? Like, do you think that is kind of a gradient true-false question? Like this, like it's here.
Okay.
Am I clear?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm thinking. I would say there's a true or false. Yeah.
So if there's a truth, then somebody is standing on the wrong line. That's what that means by definition.
Yeah.
So either she is standing on the wrong line or you are standing on the wrong line.
Or they both are.
Yeah.
So how do we figure out who's standing on the wrong line?
Or there is no line.
And are you willing to
There is no line.
to move over?
Well, the arguments I've heard of her don't make me move to her line.
Do the arguments you've heard of him make you move over? Want to make you move over?
No. Because he hasn't addressed like my core argument, which is like not every person that sits in government, I would say, is racist. Not every policy that has been implemented is racist. Not every single person is racist.
If he would address that to your satisfaction, would you move over?
Yeah, probably.
Are you capable of addressing her claim to her satisfaction?
I can argue some, yeah. I think that
Like, this is fascinating to me. And I've never seen this done before with SE, but these are SE questions, but there are multiple people involved. And it heightens the tension because there is conflict, visualized there, but it's still, no one's yelling at each other. And I don't know, it's more interesting and engaging to watch, but is this effective? I don't know. It's interesting. For
Mark
me.
Solomon brought Tommy really into the room. That's about what this would be like.
Yeah, we have actual
magic up a Tommy. Phew, there you are.
A good analogy.
Instead of being a hypothetical alternative, it's an embodied alternative.
Yeah.
We all I think that colonization was such a big issue that we all have colonial aspects in our mind. Like I myself, I'm Venezuelan. I have Spanish heritage. I have Native American heritage and African American heritage, and I think that there's still big colonial part of my mind that with education and with growing up, that still exists in me, and it's been nurtured. So,
and here's a meta point. This video exposes people like him believe things like this for these reasons in this location. So that's another potential goal you can have when producing content like this. It's like another goal besides changing minds of the actual people there, but merely exposing this as a thing that's happening in the world. So is that a fair goal to have with SE in creating content? I don't think it might be a little malicious if you want to expose something you disagree with and you think it's a problem. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, SE can be used lots of different ways, right? And you can't control that. I mean, somebody could go out and monetize it a lot as well. Like they could do courses and all of that. And so, it's like it feels like it's like anything else that you have a tool there, and I mean, I guess you could put a set of guidelines or something like that, like maybe the organization, like SEI, if they were to put out a set of guidelines that said, you know, this is what we suggest SE be used for, but you can't control it, obviously.
Right. There's no formal brand or trademark or
right.
limit.
Right.
This isn't like Major League Baseball, where we have a contractual obligation of the something.
Right.
This is just a community-driven thing that's growing, and maybe it'll schism at some point. Maybe this is the example of a schism between SE that is Spectrum and SE that is neutral or something. Okay, you could have it. They're probably both very useful.
Yeah.
So I think that with that being in your mind and with colonization having happened, there's always racist aspects in our current life. And
Okay, cool. So I've kept you guys way too long, and I appreciate you're doing this. So what did you learn? What did you learn about what you think about this topic from these questions? If you learn anything, that's fine too.
Well, I like talking about this in like this sense. Yeah.
Oh, so for you enjoyed it. Did you learn anything or no? It's fine to say no.
Yeah. I learned like your point of view. Yeah, for sure.
Did it make you challenge or question any of your own assumptions?
For sure. Yeah.
Interesting. What did?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I didn't mean to.
No, I just said for sure. That's it.
Did you learn anything from this?
I learned that it's important to think very critically about the statements that you make, especially because most of the statements that you make like follow a gradient. Like even things that we once used to believe that were facts are no longer factual today. Information's always changing. I mean, knowledge is considered a theory as is time. So I feel like it's very important to be very, very critical in any statements that you make and be able to back up your statements not only with facts, but I think personal stories are also just as valuable.
All right. Well, thank you guys for participating. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So, yeah, that's that. Is this? It's not a classic SE of one-on-one conversations, but I think it meets a lot of the goals, and it's really engaging.
It's almost like heavily moderating debate using SE. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems okay, at least that time.
Yeah.
Right.
With disconfirmation questions.
It could be done so wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, like I could see that happening and going much worse with people who actually, even though Peter may have an agenda, he's still doing it fairly neutrally. And he's still trying to keep it on epistemology. And so I'm sure there could be someone else doing it with an agenda and asking, mainly not even asking questions. That would be one thing. Just trying to give facts to people to try to persuade them. That would be bad. Or just then asking leading questions. That would be bad. What do you think the microphone adds to it? That is another kind of.
I think it's a talking stick. Yeah,
Mm.
I think it's a talking stick. It keeps people from talking over one another in that particular case. And obviously there needs to be great sensitivity on the part of the person holding the microphone to not use it as a stick to beat people with, metaphorically.
True, yeah.
Stick of power.
That does help people from not talking over each other. Want to keep going with this video? What time is it? We've gone over 2 hours.
Yeah, we've gone over, I guess.
Yeah, we're past time.
Okay. Well, that was fun. Got one call in, I think, but we had Mark and Diamond join. That was nice. So sweet. Yeah. Any last last words?
Do we think microphone
animates participants? It might go both directions. I think there's an intimidation component which would de-animate or cause somebody to pull back. And there's also the microphone is here. I need to do it now. I need to go quickly. It's a way to pace things as well. So obviously there's a lot of potential downside. Hence, I really like multiple microphones and not moving them. That's my preference. Bring enough microphones for everybody.
Mm-hmm. I actually got to do this with abortion, the topic of abortion on purpose, and I took my time with it. Like I allowed people to think. So I'll try to edit that together if we decide not to post that on Peter's channel and have that up soon. We can do a review on that.
Cool.
That'd be fun. But anyway, thanks everyone for watching. Links in the description for stuff. And we've always have stuff going on in the SE community. Check out the Discord, check out the website. And I think there's another practice session going on, maybe not in 20 minutes, but like very soon. So check out the Discord. In the meantime, hope to see you around.
Yeah.
Later.